My name is Victoria Nasr. I was born in 1985 in Redcar, which is just near Middlesbrough. I was brought up in a normal working class background. My mum was a midwife, my dad was a heating engineer, and they weren't particularly religious. Although they brought us up with quite strong morals, you know, to be hard-working, honest, good manners, I suppose just normal things like that. I had, I suppose, a fairly normal childhood. I used to enjoy, I suppose, swimming. I did a bit of horse riding. I really enjoyed dancing. So those were the main things. I also played the piano for quite a while, from about age 8 to 12, I suppose, I learnt the piano. I was always, I suppose, described as a fairly quietly confident person from a young age. Sometimes I could be quite shy. I was usually very well behaved, you know, at home and at school. Just used to get on with my schoolwork and do as I was told. We did go to Sunday school, me and my brother, for a short time when I was about 3 or 4. And I remember enjoying that, and we used to learn about Bible stories and things like that. And we only stopped going because I think my mum and dad were too busy with work. After that, we never really were involved much in any church until I reached about the age of 10, and one of my best friends was getting confirmed in a Church of England, so I did that with her, just to keep her company, really. And from then on, I started to get more and more involved in the church. I used to go regularly, and I learned, I suppose, quite a lot about Christianity and the Bible. I'd gone to church, I suppose, regularly from about age 10 till about 15, 16. I would say, I believed in God, I believed in the devil, I believed in heaven, hell. Although none of the Holy Trinity concept made sense, because it was like you have God and you have the Son of God, Jesus, so what was this third thing? Was it the ghost of Jesus after he died and been resurrected? So I remember being confused, who do I pray to? You know, do I pray to Jesus or to God or this spirit? So, you know, it's hard to follow your life with something that didn't completely make sense, and that's when I started to question Christianity and, you know, my religion, I suppose. I definitely believed in God, and I would have called myself a Christian. So I suppose I just thought by going to church it was like a connection with God. And as I got older, I started to lose that. It just stopped making sense. I just felt like nobody was listening to, you know, to my prayers when I was going to church. I wasn't getting that sense that there was something, you know, holy there. I had my heart set at one point on becoming a doctor, and I wanted to go to medical school. And all through school I'd studied so hard, all through college. You know, I'd maybe like given up going out with friends, you know, so that I could get schoolwork done and things like that. And when I didn't actually get accepted into medical school, even though my grades were pretty good, that turned my world upside down. You know, I had this plan for my life that I dreamed of, and all of a sudden I knew it definitely wasn't going to happen. So that was one thing. I remember sort of feeling quite depressed when that happened. I was at university, supposed to be having the best time of my life, going out, drinking, clubbing, but at the end of it all, there was just that empty feeling of life at the end of the day. Like, why are we here? I would say I'd pretty much become an atheist. I became an atheist, I suppose, because I just felt like Christianity didn't have the answers. As I say, it was corrupted. I hadn't really looked into any other religions at that point. I suppose I just started to live my life as I wanted to, I suppose, without any specific direction or purpose, just to have fun. I would go out drinking. I had boyfriends, just like any, I suppose, normal 18-year-old girl at that time. But I found life was full of problems, full of obstacles. That sort of lifestyle didn't make me happy. I think that probably 99% of people in Britain probably are depressed, or at least at some point. I know that the number of people taking antidepressants at the moment is very, very high. And I think there's a lot of people just the same. Maybe they're okay until something does happen in their life where they are tested and they then don't have that religion to fall back on. So it's very easy for them to become depressed, because I suppose their life is quite empty, lonely, they don't have answers. Before I went to college, I would say I never really knew any Muslim people, and I had some quite ignorant views of what Islam was. For example, if I saw a woman with a hijab on, I used to feel sorry for her. I used to think, oh, what a poor girl or woman. Her family must have made her wear that. Basically, I thought that they were oppressed. Other than that, I never had really thought much about what Muslim people really believed in. I knew they were associated with terrorism and 9/11 and things like that. But I never really, took much notice. And then when I was in college, sort of 16, 17, I became quite good friends with a girl. She was originally from Sudan, but she was Muslim, and she was just one of the nicest people I'd ever met. She was so open, honest, and then I got another surprise when I went to a house, because I used to stay over there quite a lot, and her mum used to treat me as if I was another daughter, just one of the family. Even her sisters, and I think she had one brother, they were all the same, really warm, welcoming. So even though at this point I was introduced to a Muslim family, I still didn't really take much notice of the actual religion. I didn't think, oh yeah, Islam is something that I need to look into further. But looking back now, I remember being, very impressed. And I suppose at the time I maybe thought this was just a one-off, this was just her and her family. But actually I now realise it had a lot to do with the fact that they were Muslims, and that was the way they treated people, not just, me. This is how it teaches you to welcome people into your house, to be good hosts, to be polite, just good manners. After I'd met this friend, I was just, I suppose, more comfortable with what a Muslim was. When I was at university, I actually got friendly with someone from Saudi Arabia, and they found out that I had been brought up with a Christian background. I knew quite a lot about the Bible and things, so they actually started to really ask me a lot of questions about, I suppose, what was the same in Christianity and Islam and what was different. So through those conversations, I started to learn a lot about Islam without really realising it at first. And I don't think he ever actually intended to sort of preach to me and, you know, make me revert. And even just simple things like really opened my eyes, because I think before that I'd been very ignorant towards Islam. I just classed it as another like nonsense religion, and the more I learnt about Islam from those conversations, that sort of the more shocked I was. I became very interested in it. I started to watch documentaries, films, I read books. I actually read books about the corruption of Christianity as well as Islamic texts, and then I was given the Quran and I started to read that, and I was just amazed by the Quran. There was nothing in it to me that said Islam was, you know, a religion promoting terrorism. All the sort of ideas I'd had about Islam in the past were completely wiped away. And I suppose just from learning about that, I decided I couldn't ignore it. I just had to follow it. It was just like a change in my heart. When I started to learn about Islam, I realised then that everything was for a reason, everything had answers. What we have planned is not necessarily what Allah has planned for us, and in fact you often learn in the future things have worked out for the best. So I think I must have reverted, I think it was about the end of 2004, 2005. I remember I was actually watching a documentary, and it was about an English woman actually who had reverted herself, and she talked about how before that her life was, I suppose, like a lot of other English girls. She'd had I think, if I remember correctly, she'd had a bit of trouble with like drinking and sort of getting in trouble and hanging about with like groups, and I think she had actually a Pakistani boyfriend, and she ended up marrying him in the end, and she learnt about Islam, and she just completely transformed her life. And she was saying how how her life is now better, how it's improved. She talked about a lot of things. So I suppose from that I thought, well, if this woman has become a Muslim, and I suppose what she was describing was kind of similar to me, and her life has become better in that way, I suppose something inside me just thought, I want to be Muslim, I really have to do this. And that's when I started to tell like friends and a few people around me. Some of them were quite dismissive, as if, oh, like really, is this not just like a little fad? They didn't exactly, but I think they kind of, well, if you are genuine, that's nice, but the Saudi friend, he was over the moon. I think he was shocked, but yeah, he was over the moon. He encouraged me, but then another friend actually put me off and said, oh, you couldn't do that, you wouldn't be able to pray 5 times a day, you won't be able to stop drinking, your family will never accept it. he wasn't practicing, and he was like, if I can't do it, you certainly can't do it, sort of thing. It just kind of made me feel like, well, if he can react like that, how many other people are going to react like that? Because like we know that just because somebody is a Muslim, it doesn't necessarily mean they are a good person. They might call themselves a Muslim, so I was a bit worried about maybe going to see an imam or someone in the mosque and getting told to, to get lost or something. I mean, the chance of that happening is obviously very, very slight, but that I was still a bit worried about getting accepted, I suppose, by other Muslims, as well as non-Muslim people. When I first became Muslim, I didn't put the hijab on, so to be honest, people, they can't really tell, unless it actually comes up in conversation, like maybe someone would say, well, would you like to go out for a drink? And I would say, actually, no, I'm a Muslim now, sorry, I don't go out drinking anymore, I can go for a coffee with you, or pizza at the cinema, or something like that. And I actually found a lot of people then wouldn't bother with me. It's kind of like, oh, well, if you're not going to come out and get drunk with us, then we don't really want to meet up with you anyway. So that was a bit hard to deal with. So a lot of friends I'd had in the past all of a sudden were not interested in me anymore. I suppose even sort of people at work, after work, they'd all be saying, oh, we're going to the pub for a drink, and obviously I wouldn't be included in that. So that was sometimes, made you feel a bit lonely, a bit left out. When I did actually start to wear the hijab, I felt like people at work didn't really have a problem with it, or at least not to my face. I think because of my job, they then know, oh, well she's like an educated woman. I don't know if it was something to do with that, so that they treated me quite nicely with respect, but I found if I'm walking in the street or say in a supermarket, I get a lot of people looking at me, and some of them, I would say in a quite negative way. I've had the odd thing shouted at me, maybe from across the street, so that kind of puts you off a little bit, doesn't make you feel quite comfortable, but it depends where I am. If I'm in my local town, no matter what, people always stare. I would say most people are pleasant. I say there's the odd one or two that will shout things, but if I go sort of 20 minutes away into Middlesbrough, which does have quite a large Muslim population, it's completely different. If I walk down the street, nobody even blinks an eye if I've got my hijab on, which is lovely. You just fit in, so that's quite nice. Since I reverted to Islam in about 2005, 2006, I I've been married and I've had a son, and this is him, Yusuf. He's 18 months, and my life has definitely changed for the better since becoming a Muslim. I have much more focus in my life, and a lot of that is due to being guided from the Quran. So I do use the Quran, as I say, for my daily life. If I'm having problems in my life, if I want to look for answers, I know that I'll find it in the Quran. As well, what I find is sometimes you'll read something in the Quran like one day, one time, and you'll get a certain meaning from it. And then you might sort of find you read it again in a few months, and you can get a different meaning from it. Not that it contradicts itself, but it's so amazing, it's so complex. It's not just a book, like a collection of stories like the Bible. It is something to live your life by, basically. My advice to anybody who hasn't read the Quran, I would say definitely not to dismiss it as a nonsense religion. It's not full of violence or hatred towards non-Muslims. It's not telling people to go and become terrorists and blow themselves up in the name of Islam. It's just not like that. It is a peaceful religion, and if you read the whole Quran, you will understand all the context to different things. My advice to somebody that is thinking about reverting to Islam, I would say just go for it. Don't hesitate. Don't worry about what people are going to think and say, because in the end Allah will help you. He'll be there. Islam to me is it's like a way of life. I feel like it's something you can't ignore. Once you've learnt about Islam, you can't just go back to the normal way of living because it just doesn't make sense anymore. So there's so many things that I get from being a Muslim. I get like a sense of peace in my life, comfort. Any sort of questions that you have about your life, you can open the Quran and you will find answers. It just takes away all that sort of doubt about why we're here, how we should live our lives. So Islam is really the answer to all the questions.